The information in this video was originally presented on August 19, 2020. Please keep in mind that situations and programs are subject to change, especially in these trying times.
Well, good evening. And one of the things we like to do when we're running our events is to start on time. So there's no time like the present to get started. So good evening. I'm Rick Ramhap. I'm one of the FIRST LEGO League Discover directors and part of the team with FIRST Long Island. I know it says that I'm Dave Meyer. I'm not really. So if you get confused, it happens all the time. So I want to welcome you to our info night. And once again, this is our organization is FIRST Long Island. So here's a little bit about our agenda for tonight. We're going to cover a few things. First of all, we'll talk a little bit about organization. We'll go on a little bit then after that and talk about FIRST, which is the parent global organization. We'll have an overview of all of the FIRST programs and then talk a little bit about our calendar for the season. A little bit more about how we operate or we expect to operate in the full life cycle with our volunteers and our participants and all. And then we'll move on into a couple of other things we'd like to talk about. We'll try to get through this pretty quickly so that there's plenty of time for your questions. If you have a question, I believe there's a Q&A question box there, and we will stop occasionally for those. What we'll do is go through all the programs together, and then we will have some dedicated time for questions from each specific program. So without further ado, a little bit about who we are. FIRST Long Island's parent organization, School Business Partnerships of Long Island, is a nonprofit corporation. We are IRS exempt status there, so 501c3 public charity. SBPLI has been involved in STEM-based programs since 1984 when it began facilitating high school internships at Long Island's technology companies as well as other vertical markets. Our mission statement is to create an educated workforce by opening the minds of students to STEM-based career opportunities through a collaborative partnership of schools, businesses, community organizations, and government. Now, since 1999, when SBPLI partnered with FIRST, we've been implementing the FIRST Robotics programs for Long Island students. And our executive director is Bertram Dittmar.
While adapting this presentation for YouTube, we decided to leave the videos out and just include links. This would be a great time for you to go watch the video that's captioned on this page and come right back and we'll follow up with the rest of the presentation.
So let's take a look at some of those programs in depth here, and we'll see how they pan out for different age groups. Let's look first of all at the overall global organization. Now, FIRST is a large organization. There's lots going on. In fact, here's some numbers here to help. And let's see. As soon as the slide switches, there we go. As you can see, many students are involved in this globally. We're all around the world, many countries, many volunteers, many hours, and lots of people at our championships. In fact, so many that a few years ago, a second championship was created. But FIRST is a little bit more than just the robot. There's a lot going on. So we have some things here that you might want to ponder. Keep in mind that robots are really just a hook to get kids involved, but skills gained go way beyond robotics. Now, there are a couple of terms you may have heard in the video. We'll talk about those just a little bit. Gracious professionalism is part of the ethos of FIRST. It's a way of doing things that encourages high quality work, emphasizes the value of others, and respects individuals and the community. With gracious professionalism, fierce competition and mutual gain are not separate notions. Now, cooperation is displaying unqualified kindness and respect in the face of fierce competition. Cooperation is founded on the concept and a philosophy that teams can and should help and cooperate with each other, even as they compete. Cooperation involves learning from teammates. It is teaching teammates. So we're looking at some of these 21st century work skills and helping kids learn how to collaborate, work together, and that kind of thing. But FIRST has done a longitudinal study to prove that this actually works. So here's a little bit on FIRST alumni. Now this longitudinal study has tracked science kids participating in FIRST and kids that don't, kind of comparing them. And the study has been conducted since 2012. So there's quite a bit of data here. We know the program works. The kids with FIRST experience have shown increased interest in doing well in school, taking more challenging courses. They have also, they're more likely to pursue a STEM-related career and have gained some 21st century work-life skills. So this is kind of how it looks as they approach the college years. Now, this used to be thought of that, engineering was a male-dominated thing, and things around engineering were male-dominated. We're seeing quite a shift in that area. We're seeing that locally as well as globally. It decidedly not just for boys. We've enjoyed a substantial increase in participation by girls, and that is seen as they choose their college majors as well. FIRST is all about awareness of STEM careers as well as STEM components of most careers. So we're seeing now that you don't necessarily need to be an engineer in the future to take advantage of this. There are some STEM related activities in many careers. So we feel that children that come out of the program often have a lot of those skills, whether they choose to go into an engineering or technical background in school or not. These are the FIRST core values. I'll let you take a look at those. These apply across all of our programs. So let's take a look at those programs. FIRST is actually composed of 3 different programs: FIRST Lego League, FIRST Tech Challenge, and FIRST Robotics Competition. FIRST Lego League is then divided into 3 divisions, forming FIRST Lego League Discover, FIRST Lego League Explore, and FIRST Lego League Challenge. They all lay out like this. So we'll give you a little quick overview showing the ages, team sizes, and we'll go into this in depth here as we proceed. Now, if you've been with us before and are familiar with some of these components, you may say, hey, some of those names look a little different. I don't see such and such. So FIRST has had some rebranding, particularly around FIRST Lego League in this season. And so FIRST Lego League has been divided into these 3 divisions. But you'll see the ages covered are all the way from age 4 through high school. Each year, there's an overall theme that is developed for the season. So let's take a look at this year's overall overarching theme, which is Game Changers.
While adapting this presentation for YouTube, we decided to leave the videos out and just include links. This would be a great time for you to go watch the video that's captioned on this page and come right back and we'll follow up with the rest of the presentation.
Without further ado, let's dig into the programs. The first is FIRST Lego League, and as we discussed, it is comprised of 3 different divisions. We'll start at the beginning age-wise with FIRST Lego League Discover. Now, FIRST Lego League programs, all 3 of the divisions, are also working in concert with the Lego Group. So FIRST and the Lego Group partnered many years ago and have developed these. Each is age appropriate and each uses Lego products which are age appropriate as well. So we start here with FIRST Lego League Discover. And this is a program that is reasonably new to our area. This program's actually only been in existence, I believe, for about 3 years, including a testing year. This targets pre-K to 1st grade. And as you can read here, kids use Duplo blocks to work together in teams of 4. Now, there is a theme this year within the larger Game Changers theme for FIRST Lego League Discover, and that's Playmakers. This program is actually designed to work in schools and organizations only, sometimes in a classroom or an after-school setting. And as such, it's somewhat self-contained, so there's an opportunity within that for schools or organizations to hold events. So there's no travel needed or anything like that for kids of this age. A really unique thing about this is that kids are sent home with a small set of bricks, 6 in fact, different colors. And these work together in something that Lego calls 6 bricks. And they have many online activities associated with this, whether you can build or stack in different ways or discern colors. Great stuff for preschool and early education. So what does this look like? Well, here are some teams in action. And you can see that there is, and we'll look at the packaging in a minute, but as you can see in the bottom slide, there's a bit of a plastic mat that is specific to the annual theme. And then there's a box of parts, which we'll learn about in a second, and you'll see that those are also directly related to the theme. And the kids are indeed of preschool age. So it comes packaged like this. This is actually normally sold in what's called a class pack, so it would be multiple units of this. But you'll see in the top box on the left there, these are actual parts that are used for the kids to assemble and to combine. On the right are 4 packs of the 6 bricks, which are for the take-home sets. And then this comes packaged with a team meeting guide and with engineering notebooks. Now we'll talk a little bit more about those in depth in the next program, but basically the meeting guide gives you a set of predefined sessions. It will actually go through and say, hey, here's what you might do in your first session. Here's what you do in your second. If you have some experience with the program, you can certainly feel free to ignore some of that and work on those as you will, but this will be theme driven to help you get through a season or through a set of things. These are also usually packaged, we'll talk a little bit more about class packs later, but they're usually packaged for reuse, so that if you are in a school setting, you could use these, say, in a fall semester and then again in a spring semester. The engineering notebooks are something that the children actually use. They might sketch out an idea or draw a picture of what they plan to build, for example. Next age-wise is First Lego League Explore. Now, many of you may remember this as First Lego League Junior. That name has been retired. This is now First Lego League Explore. And this is for kids typically in the elementary ages. The teams now are up to 6 in size. There's a real-world challenge that is posed every year for the children, and this, again, is going to work with the Playmakers theme as part of the overall theme. By the way, about half the teams on Long Island are associated in some way with schools, but the other half are community-based teams, often led by parents or organizational leaders such as scout leaders. So this program is packaged either in a single unit or also available in the class packs. Here's some other points to consider. Now, this uses Lego Mindstorms technology. I'm sorry, Lego WeDo 2.0 technology. So kids actually will program using drag and drop interfaces, some things, and they must have a moving component in their model. They will create a model that demonstrates some of the things they've explored throughout their season, and they'll also create a show me poster, and they'll practice some presentation skills in front of reviewers. I'll give you a look at what that might look like. So on the bottom is what might be a typical Lego team. This is a local team and their mascot. On the top left, you'll see the Show Me poster, which itself is divided into 3 sections typically, where something about the team itself and the members. On the right-hand side of the poster, something about the model and how it works and what it depicts. And in the middle, something about the challenge and what was researched. This poster is not from the current year, so there was an animal research project that particular year. On the top right is the model that would be used to depict something that the team explored and wanted to further discover or further experience. And somewhere in there would be their WeDo 2.0 robot moving part. The robot might not be in the picture, but the part would be, and maybe the tree there might turn around or something. And each one usually has some sort of moving element. This is packaged as similarly to how the Discover project is a program or division rather, getting used to the new terms here, how that division is packaged. But this, of course, is available on an individual basis as well for teams of up to 6. So each season there is an Explore set which contains Lego components that could be used for that are theme related. You'll see some of those here on the top left. Then there's a team meeting guide and an engineering notebook. Again, these are age appropriate. So let's look a little bit further at those guides so that you can see that this can be run by someone who doesn't necessarily have any experience with this. Does not require a teaching degree or an engineering degree to coach a team. Here's what a sample meeting guide might look like. You'll see that it's driven to, what might be covered in a session, some typical things that need to happen. Maybe they're going to, and this one looks like they're going to assemble some of the things in the Explore kit. And then they'll go further and you'll see sort of a picture of what might correspond in the engineering notebook so that the person leading the session understands what the children might be doing as well. And here is a sample engineering notebook page. This shows some of the things that, some of the activities that might be carried out on that particular meeting. All right, we move along. The children get a little older, the robots get a little larger, and the teams get a little larger. So this is First Lego League Challenge. Formerly, this was just known as First Lego League. The kids are a little older here. We're looking at grades 4 to 8. This will take you up generally through middle school. Teams can be up to 10 students in size. And they use Mindstorm's technology. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but the little larger robots, these robots move autonomously about a course. This season's theme is replay. In this case, kids are also given a real world challenge, but things are turned, the knobs are turned up a little bit. Now they have a real research project they need to investigate, and then they need to present. And they typically present these to judges at an event. They will also compete against other teams with Lego Mindstorm's robots, and these could be Spike Prime, which is a brand new Lego product, or the Mindstorm's EV3 robots. By the way, this program is competitive. The earlier two are not competitive. I may not have mentioned it, but at the end of the first Lego League Explore season, typically there is a festival, some sort of celebration and sharing of multiple teams. So back to First Lego League Challenge, this is what an event would look like, at least in a typical year, and we'll talk more about the challenges of this season as we go along. But here you can see each of the tables has basically a 4-foot by 8-foot sheet, which has a mat on there, and the mat has different challenges. It also has Lego components that are there. You might think of them as obstacles or different things that require some interaction. And teams will gain points by having their robot navigate to do something with some of those different items that are on the table. So they might be asked to move something, pick something up and retrieve it. They might go out to a distant point and flip a switch. Certainly teams have the opportunity then to optimize some of their runs. They have a 2.5-minute run. And this is actually, some might say from a robot point of view, one of the more difficult programs that we have, because everything is autonomous. There's no remote control. Everything must be programmed in. Students have choices of things like line following or dead reckoning or other navigational items that they can use. So you'll see that we also try to have, try to create some hoopla. You can't hear the loud music, but I guarantee you it's there. And this is a little more of a close-up on some of these items. So you can see on the left is an EV3 robot actually working on the table. You can see some of the lines there that might indicate possibilities for line following. On the right is a judging session where this team has decided to, in their research, they've decided to create an app for a phone. And so the judges are reviewing that app. And I don't remember exactly what this app did, but you see teams are there in their team shirt and they are presenting. This is the mat on the top, and these are the things that, if you will, come in the box when you register. You will get the mat and all the components that go on the mat, so everyone can actually practice and work on this. And then you also receive the team meeting guide, the robot game rule book, and engineering notebooks for each student. Once again, the team meeting guides are based on 10 or 12 prescribed sessions that you can, and it usually has directions in there on how to shorten that to 6 if you need, or to fit whatever time frame you need. Engineering notebooks are there, one for each student, so they can use that to record some of their thoughts, or as a way to expand upon the meeting scope. And this brings us to First Tech Challenge. First Tech Challenge is typically a high school program, but it does dip down into the 7th and 8th grade level a little bit. This one actually overlaps a couple of programs. This is a very interesting program. It involves larger robots, as you can see there, obviously more than a foot in size in each dimension. And these robots typically must fit within a certain size, but then can expand, and often do once they are moving. You'll see there in the background on the right, there's a team of 3. There are 2 operators and a typically student coach. You'll see that there is a remote control. The teams can be up to 15 students. The technology gets a lot more sophisticated. And this year's season is called Ultimate Goal. We haven't seen this one actually has, we know the name, we haven't seen the challenge yet. That'll be out, I believe, in September 15th. So this is a head-to-head competition using more of a sports model, 2 teams on a field competing head-to-head and interacting with each other. And then there's a tournament structure that goes along with that. The platform here is significantly more involved. This is Android technology. Up until the last few years, and the last couple of years, this has actually used Android phones to power them. That's starting to change a little bit to some other modules, but it's the same basic idea. There's some visual programming options or Java. So kids are actually using techniques that are used in business. The strategic problem solving and all goes along. There's a lot of strategy here. There may be points to be had in different phases of a tournament, and teams really need to decide and strategize how they can optimize those. There's a certain amount of offense versus defense. Lots of awards here. Awards are given not only for the robot game, but also for community service, for all sorts of things related to this. Lots of team building skills going on here. And as you'll note there at the end, lots of scholarships available as well. Once again, this is what a tournament might look like. This is one from a couple of years ago. And you'll see the field, which is, I don't remember the exact dimensions, roughly 12 or 15 feet square. And you'll see that there's, in this particular game, which is from a couple of years back, there are some foam bricks in the middle, and the teams would distribute those in different ways and stack them in some of the vertically red and blue racks that you'll see along the edges of the field. So that should give you an idea right away that if a robot has to go pick one of those things up and then navigate back over and put that in a slot, that'll give you an idea of the difficulty here and how challenging that can be. You'll see there are lots of referees around. There are probably some judges lurking as well, though I don't see any of them in this particular shot. So this is a typical team and an inspector. And as I said, robots must be within a certain size. So there is the literal box they must fit within. And on the right side, you'll see another team who are last year's winners from Untitled Robotics. And we'll move on to FIRST Robotics competition. FIRST Robotics competition is the oldest program within our midst. And if you've been to our tournaments at Hofstra University, this is what you saw. Things are much larger here. So the kids typically are larger. This is high school only, grades 9 through 12. Teams are typically around 25 in size, but we have seen teams of, maybe 100. We've seen teams of 4 or 5. The robots now get up into the 120-pound variety, and they are significantly more sophisticated. The challenges are pretty involved. You're also, in addition to dealing with the robot and the game, and you'll see the scale of this in a second, but you're also dealing with a much larger team. So typically there's a team management and project management component of this that becomes much more obvious as you move along. Typically teams here, as in First Tech Challenge, will start to manufacture their own components. They will, in FIRST Robotics competition, they will get a kit of parts which they choose to use. They may not use all of them, and they will then augment those parts with their own design and their own tools. It is not at all uncommon to see students using milling machines and the like to custom fabricate their own components. Again, lots of scholarships available for this crowd as well. And typically these, while the younger students are expected to work pretty much on their own with some coaching, in the older areas, mentors are available. And the idea there is for students to work hand in hand with professionals. So they get a chance to really kind of try on some of the engineering components. So this is what one tournament at Hofstra 2 years ago might have looked like. You'll see this is, we're getting ready for Alliance selection, which is why there's only one student in view. You'll see some judges seated along the outside there and lots of teams. And of course, the teams are larger, both physically and in numbers. And you'll see that the field, it takes up roughly 2/3 of a basketball court. So these robots move quite a distance at quite a speed, moving around quite a bit and carrying out all sorts of different functions. Defense is a big deal here, as well as offense. Get a closer look at some of this. You'll see the team on the left is Team 810 from Smithtown, who I think at that moment had realized their alliance had won the robot competition for the tournament. And on the right, you'll see a young lady from Plain Edge and a little bit about what her team's robot looks like. The green rollers, for example, were in this case used to propel, I think, a ball maybe to move it along or maybe to pick something up. You'll see they've got a big bracket there, a whole mechanism that will move, and I see some pneumatic air tanks on there as well. So things get sophisticated and they get that way pretty quickly. So here we are again at an overview of all the programs. So we've put a couple of things here that I want to explain a little bit. First of all, some of them have overlapping ages, and that's intentional to allow a little bit of flexibility, but typically FIRST LEGO League Explorer is for the elementary ages, FIRST LEGO League Challenge for the middle school ages, FIRST Robotics Competition for high school, and FIRST Tech Challenge, while typically used in high school, certainly allows some younger kids as well. You'll see that each of these programs has a team size here, and the team sizes get a little bit larger. We've put some general budget numbers down here. I don't want you to take those too literally. We can help you a little later understand what those mean. There's an annual registration fee, which is only part of that number. We're talking about numbers that we would expect a first-year team perhaps to have to spend to get started from zero. And we also, I want to point out that these 4 programs also can be purchased in a class pack, can be purchased as part of a school organization where you might present these in school. In fact, you might have a curriculum available. So let's take a little bit more of a look at that. Now, not prepared to go too deeply into this at this time, but if you are definitely interested in class packs, we can certainly get you some information. There's even some professional development available from FIRST for teachers. So the idea here is that these are intended for schools or organizations. I think the minimum class pack size is something around 6. So think of that as maybe 6 classrooms in 2 semesters. There is curriculum available. It's all based on project-based learning. You can see some of the things that we expect students to tie in with. There's lots of standards-based information here. So these will tie to various standards. I took a look last night. There are about 6 or 7 standards that tie into this curriculum. If you want some more information on this from a school point of view, there's a URL down there at the bottom, or you can contact us and we'll be happy to get you in contact with people that know a lot more about class packs and that can really help you get started. So safety is a big issue these days, and as we negotiate what's been an interesting year, but we certainly want students to be safe too. So FIRST has implemented a youth protection program to address this. All volunteers, no matter how tightly they are related to working with kids here, must pass a youth protection program, some research and an exam here, and certainly those of us that you'll hear from tonight are no exception. I did mention scholarships. So there are lots of scholarships available. I would point out that a few years ago, FIRST actually went back to find out if these scholarships, they knew there was potential out there. They want to know if these were actually being used, and they validated these numbers. So lots and lots of scholarships available. Typically, we think of colleges and universities. That's not always the case. There's some specialized schools that also qualify here. There are millions of dollars to Long Island students available, and if you talk to our alumni, they are definitely using this as part of their college planning. So we have a bit of an ecosystem or community here on Long Island, and we're very happy about that community, and we certainly would like to develop it a little more. And this goes back to SBPLI's original roots as well. So wherever you jump in on this cycle, let's say that you're a youngster and you jump in at the first LEGO League level in any of those 3 divisions, we'd like to see you move throughout the program into maybe First Tech Challenge and or FIRST Robotics competition, and then move on. And well, now we get to the college years, so those scholarships kick in. But somewhere in scholarship time, well, an internship is usually pretty helpful. I know my son has had a scholarship on Long Island an internship on Long Island, and he was very happy to do that with one of our sponsors. Then we'd love to see people come back to Long Island. So many of our sponsors are very interested in having this group of well-educated, well-experienced students come back to Long Island and work in Long Island jobs. Of course, they've had a taste of the program. They can't leave it alone. They've got to get involved again. So there becomes a pool of mentors. And many of our volunteers have been on the job for 15 or 20 years. And we'd like to recruit more, of course. And so often those mentors and alumni become part of the volunteer corps. Now, you notice this wraps around. We're starting to see this. We've had at least one marriage of 2 FIRST alumni on Long Island that we know of. I'm sure there have been others. And well, we may see some FIRST LEGO League Discover members here one day. You never know. So we see this circle is going round and round. It's interesting. We talk sometimes about the progression of programs as being sort of age-based, but often on Long Island, we find people that get involved at the high school level, and then word of mouth comes back, or younger brothers and sisters come out. And so there's some jumping around here, but this is our community, and we'd be very happy to welcome you. Now, we certainly cannot do this ourselves, and I mentioned sponsors. There'll be some very familiar names here. And these sponsors really help us out in any number of ways. Obviously, financially, but also through some of those internships and through a lot of the mentoring that goes on. We also could not do any of the programs that we have without our school districts, which work on a little bit different basis, and they offer us space and some mentorship as well. And we've really been very lucky to have such loyal partners, both at the sponsor and school district level. So the big question for many people, and we will get to your questions in a few minutes here, but this is the big one: how can my child join? Well, we're a little different than Boy Scouts or this or that. There's no place to go sign up for an existing thing. But your school may offer FIRST programs, or you can start your own. And this certainly was the case at my house and many other houses. Lots of teams have started in living rooms and garages and basements. No technical requirement for having any sort of background like that. My wife was one of our earliest coaches with what is now First League Explore. She's an artist, no technical background whatsoever, and no problem coaching for years. We do have some training available. And as you saw, there's a coach's handbook, there's some mentoring as well. Schools, we have many schools. We have one of the highest penetrations of school districts in the country within FIRST here on Long Island. So chances are your school does offer something. But if they do not, or if you'd like to see that expanded, we can help you there, have a talk with the appropriate people to see how that could maybe change. There may be some community organizations around too. We may have heard of some places that are looking for students, but there are different ways to go about that. So how would you get started? And that's not the slide I want, but this is. Here we go. So you could start by visiting firstinspires.org, which is the URL for our parent organization. On there, there's a little item there on the right-hand side where you can register. And once you do that, you'll find a dashboard and you can create a new team. It's as easy as that. If you're not comfortable doing that on your own, we can certainly give you a hand with that. So I want to take a little look at the calendar. While many of our events typically happen within the school season, there are some things that go on throughout the year. And some of these require a little description this year, and we'll talk a little bit about the exceptions that might ensue this year shortly. We've color-coded these to go along with the different programs. So in August, typically a lot of the challenges are released, not all of them. First Tech Challenge, that challenge will come out in September. October is when we start to do some training of coaches and students. And we typically have a training day for First Lego League. First Tech Challenge also has a training day. And we're looking at ways to get that continued this year. You'll see some of that in November as well. And in many years, FIRST Robotics Competition has an off-season event. We're going to see how that pans out this year. As we move into December, we start to see some scrimmages and some training and some practice tournaments and that kind of thing. And we're going to see what we can do with that this season as well. In January, we start getting into qualifying tournaments. FIRST Robotics Competition actually kicks off usually the first Saturday in January. And so that's sort of a time thing. So they start with a certain amount of time between the kickoff and their first tournament. And so the early winter months, January, February, and sometimes even to March, typically are qualifying tournaments. When we get to March, typically we have championship time on a local level, and First Lego League Explore has festivals to share in the celebrate the season. So we know things are a little bit different this year. We feel, and have certainly borne out with most of us have children that have been through the program or several programs. We really feel this is about the journey and not the destination. So I don't want to put too much of an emphasis on an end of year event. That said, we are working hard to find ways to make events work. They may not be in person. Think about maybe the event will come to you. It may be remote like this meeting. But we are looking at different options. We're working with FIRST. The team at FIRST headquarters is really working around the clock to figure out ways for this to work. There will be some guidelines, and we're going to follow those. It's a year-round program, as mentioned here, so there's lots going on, but there's quite a bit going on within the program, whether there's an event or not. We intend to find a way to get some sort of event to happen. Different ways of thinking about this, things this season though. While field trips were a big deal for some teams, those could be done virtually. There's lots to be learned. We've all learned how to do virtual meetings. 66 of us are doing that right now. So we have that kind of thing going. So we have to find creative ways for teams to meet. They may or may not be meeting at school. They may or may not be meeting in garages or in living rooms. But we're sure that they can meet one way or another. So we will, as we move on through this and we get some new information about this, we'll certainly let people know. And we look forward to sharing ideas with others and getting some ideas on how this can continue on in that vein. We are an all-volunteer organization within First Long Island. And as you can see, there are plenty of roles here. We have some referees that keep things going on the robot tournament tables and fields. We have some cuers that need to get people back and forth and keep them on time, even photographers, plenty of judges, an announcer or three. And we sure would enjoy having your help as well. Lots of hours spent on this. As you can see, lots of, I think everybody's smiling. So we all have a good time. Now, we're almost finished here, but I wanted to leave you with a couple of things here. The first one is a message from our founder. I'll let you read that to yourself. I would point out that I've put some contact information up on the screen. If you would, well, we're going to ask you a favor as well, but if you have questions, please check in with the people on the call. We didn't hear from Larry, but he's here. So if you have some FIRST Robotics competition questions, Larry is here as well, as Ed, Stephanie, Eileen. And if you would be so kind, we'd ask you to email one of the people on here, if for no other reason, just to say that you were here, and then we will be glad to update you as we know a little bit more. But we don't have a list of participants, and if you could help us with that, we'd love to keep you on the list so we can update you when we have some more definitive answers.
Thanks for joining us. This video was recorded on August 19th, 2020. Please keep in mind that situations and programs are subject to change. If you would like more information on FIRST Long Island programs, please visit our website at the address shown here.